Okay, so I've got basic tile map, and I've got a placeholder tile. That's where I'm going to put a sprite. So I can have as many as these as I want. It's 16. It's a 32-bit number, so you could have 4 billion different numbers if you really wanted. So you can see in my map it's just a 2 up there, which I defined as a blue tile. But that's just for my purposes. So the first thing I need to do, because I've got a tile map that's bigger than the screen, I need to tell the engine manager that we have got a world size that is as big as this tile map. Okay, so that will allow scrolling to work properly. If your scrolling never doesn't work, it's because you haven't changed the world size. Right, so I'm now going to pick up that dummy tile and replace it with a sprite. So I'm going to use the graphics processor, and it's going to call my routine, which I'm going to call, I've not spelled that wrong, interrogate. I'm going to call it terrogate because I can't spell. Terrogate, doesn't matter what I called it, obviously. I'll keep it capitalised because I'm using proper programming practices. Right, so I'm going to get you to generate that. And use that make it build the subroutines for you feature, because actually look, it's put the parameters in. So what it will do, that routine is now going to just run through every cell in that tile, and then what it's going to give me is a tile number and a location on the map. The location is what will help me place it in the right place. So the tile number, so all I really need to do is to do a switch on tile number, and I'm just going to ignore any tiles that I don't want. So with switch you get a default option which says, oh, what do you want to do with all the ones that I didn't want to do anything with. So what I need to do is that this is going to let me do something. If I want the tile to stay there, I can do, that's up to me. But actually I want to replace it with a floor tile. If it's a tile that I'm not interested in, like a wall tile or a door or something, some other object that's going to remain as a tile, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to return of that tile. So my default position is to return, if I can spell, the tile number I've got. So if in doubt, yeah, okay, just don't do anything. That's one of the you get asked about that in the exam a little bit. Right, then I'm going to pick up the other ones and I'm going to stop and do something sensible. So I could put 2. I should say if the tile numbers are 2, but I'm going to put some constants in here. So I'm going to say const int player start. It's so funny because it's constantly syntax checking. It's like, yeah, just wait to finish typing. Syntax chapter, you could probably change that. So I'm going to just do that. So create an int, and then that makes this way more meaningful. So I can just put player start. When you do constants, put them in caps with an underscore, and then they really do stand out. Right, so if I come across a player start, I need to generate the player, but I'm also going to return a floor tile, which a floor tile for me is 0. And again, it's probably a good idea to do that and to do that. So I'm going to say, instead of return 0, which could mean anything, I'm going to say return a floor. You can have your floor back. Right, so at this point I'm saying, right, okay, I want to generate this player sprite, this player graphic, whatever that player graphic is going to be. When you're navigating within a tile map, you need to be able to interact with that tile map. Not the sprites or anything like that, but the actual walls of the tile or whatever. So in order to do that, you need to be able to talk to the tile map. The tile map should do all the checking to say whether whatever's in front of you is passable or not. The player shouldn't know about that. It should say, can I move this way? And it's asking the tile map. So in order to do that, it needs a reference to it. Now, to stop you doing globals, what we'll do is we'll pass a reference. So I am going to create a sprite. I'm just going to do that. Remember, if I put a type in, it will know I need to inherit from a sprite. So I'm going to call this player. I'm going to pass it a reference to this tilemap. And again, I'm going to get Visual Studio to do all the heavy lifting here. But I also want to plop it at a location. So I've got the location in tilemap terms, so I can say, I could do it this way. I could just pass that location on and then the sprite can do it. It's got a reference to the tilemap, so it can ask the tilemap where physically is that. Or I can do the calculation here and leave it, so I just give it a location value, which means as long as I've got a tilemap, I can actually generate that sprite from anywhere. So I will do it that way. So I'm going to say this dot, because I can't remember what it's called. Right, there are loads of location-based things in the tilemap. So really what I want to do is I'm going to keep the player centered, so I want the center of that location. Now I think it's this one. So luckily I put comments in, which is unusual for me. Gets the center of a tile as a vector 2. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to tell the sprite, this is where I want you to sit. So this is going to ask me for a location. So we've got the location. So that will give me a vector 2 value. I probably don't need any other parameters. There may be something new in the future. Oh, I've got to put Mr. Keyword new. Right, so I've got this pretend sprite, so I'm going to generate that now. Generate the type in a new file. Let me just get rid of that search box. Okay, so I can get rid of this bit now. I don't need that. That was just a trick Visual Studio to do some work. So if I go to player now, so that's F12, or you can right click if you like, clicking your mouse and go to definition. And that takes me straight there. So I haven't got all the other things, the library things in there, so I'm just going to grab them. The engine was there, but I might need some of those other ones. When you're tidying up, any that are greyed out aren't being used, although that's not looking very grey to me, but hey. Any that are greyed out, you can just delete later on. So I'm going to have some duplicates there. Okay. Right, so I'm going to rename some of these because they're awful. So that's going to be start, I'm going to call that. So to create a basic sprite, I am going to need my continuing reference to the game map, so when the player's moving I can do some interrogation. So actually I shouldn't have deleted that bit. So I keep a local copy of it for me, okay, which I'm calling game map. Right, I need to make sure I do this. If I don't do this, it will not show on the screen. Engine manager.add sprite this. Right, so I'm going to set its start position. I need a frame for it, so let's just make a simple frame. I'll use the triangle. But I'll use the text. Oh, stupid picker. Text dot triangle. So that's just a simple triangle that's defined, and I'm going to set its start position. By default, the alignment of a sprite is in the center, so but I'm just going to say that anyway. So align equals align dot center. So the X and Y position represents the center of the sprite. So I'm going to set its start positions. I'm going to say position 2D equals start. Positions are 3-dimensional, but I did add 2D ones, so when you don't care about the Z. The Z value changes the rendering order, just like on a web page. So anything with a lower Z value will be drawn first, anything with a higher one. It goes between -5,000 and 5,000. Right, so theoretically, that will replace the blue square with a sprite. Theoretically. Yeah, it's worked. You can't see it because triangle's white by default. So I didn't think about that until I just ran it and I thought, nah, it's going to be right like that. So let's just give the sprite a bit of wash. It was so hard writing this game, and it's too huge. I can't remember any of it. I wrote it. What colour? Should we go? What did you say before?
Green.
Green. Let's go. I'll show you green. Green isn't. It's like a dark green. It tells you the RGB there, so it's half green. But you'll see what the colour is in a minute. Yeah. So like forest green.
Yeah.
Colour. There is a forest green problem. Right. So I've got a sprite. So I need to set a controller up for it. So I'm going to do. There's millions of ways of doing this. You can do it using timers and things, but I'm just going to do an update callback instead. Move. And you can add multiples of these, which is why we put the plus equals. So you can have lots of ones and you can turn them on and off and all sorts of weird things. So we'll generate that. So I'll just put some key code in. And what I'll show you on this is the broadcast system. And we'll build a view manager. So I'm just going to say inf gm.inputmanager.key down. Key down. Don't know why I pressed A. There you go. Keys.write. So if I press that, I'm going to do that because I may have multiple statements in here later, but I'm just going to get it moving to start with. So I'm going to say s plus x plus equals, right, I want it to move in pixels per second. So I'm going to say I want to move at 200 pixels per second, and the way that I do that is by multiplying by the event manager's update time, which is called a delta. So it's this amount of time for a frame. So it's the fraction of a second that this code's running for. Right, so I'm going to be really bad and copy paste that, change that to a minus, change that to a left. So hopefully I've got movement. But it doesn't scroll. So what I'm going to do, for anyone that's interested, I am going to broadcast my position. So on the update callback, I'm going to add another one. So I'm going to say update callback plus equals, and it does them in this order. So I'll do any movement code first. Then I'm going to do my announce. I'm just going to call it announce. Right, so the announce is going to happen next, and that's where I'm going to broadcast. So I'm going to use the message bus system. So message bus dot instance dot broadcast a message, and the message is going to be a position. Okay. So what I can do is I'm going to broadcast just by default, I'm just going to pick, there's different methods of doing this. I can use a message type and then pass some data, which is an object, so you can pass anything, but you have to cast it to the format you want. Right, so for the message types, there are some built-in ones. I can't remember what I called the class. I think it might be message type. Right, so I've got, these are the ones that are built in, and there's none of the ones there that I want. So I'm going to show you how to make one. Okay, so we're going to create our own message type. So if we look in Solution Explorer, there's a GM message. I called it G-message because that made it short. And all you do is I left one in there so you've got a structure. So you just take this structure, come up with a name that's unique. So I'm going to call this view position, and then the reason it's got that bit of text there is that's output when we say what messages are active and what are being broadcast, so you can see what messages are on. And I'm actually going to put a comment in here, so just triple slash to get that, and I'm going to say what the object data is. So I just want to provide object contains vector2, so I know what I've got to cast it to if I'm going to use that. So back to my player. Right, so the message type is going to be GM. I don't know how you say SG. GMSG and so it should goes off the bottom. Viewer position, and I'm going to broadcast position 2D. Now, broadcasting just spits out to anybody, but only to people that subscribe. So what we're going to create is a separate entity which is going to control the screen, and this is going to be the view manager. So we're going to create a new view manager, which is just going to be a class eventually, and it's only going to be responsible, so it's going to have a constructor. Oh, it's already in the constructor. All it's going to do, let me get the references. All it's going to do is listen out for subscriptions. Okay, so it's going to subscribe first of all. So it's going to say messagebus.instance.subscribe, and it's going to subscribe to a certain type of message. So it's going to subscribe to view position messages, and if a view position message comes in, I want to run some code. So update, I'm going to call it. So I'll get it to generate that, and you'll see that it gets given a message. Now we know the message is a vector2, so we're going to say vector2 pos equals vector2 message dot object value. Hang on, little m. That one dot object value. So we're casting. We know the object for this type of message because we put the comment in. So you see, when I move over it, oh, vector2. Object contains vector2. So what I can do now is I can tell the engine manager. I can say to the engine manager, if I could type properly, change the view. This will only work if we change the world size. If we haven't changed the world size, it doesn't matter what you do, it will not move. So we need to say view dot position 2D equals pos. So theoretically, because the tilemap manager is in communication with the engine is moving the view, it tells the tilemap manager whenever it renders that this is the current view position. So theoretically, this will scroll. And it's already scrolling. Okay, doesn't look very good because we're in the corner. We want to be in the center of the screen. So we can't use that raw, we've got to offset it. So what we need to do is subtract. So we've just said set the corner. So I need to say minus new vector2, and I want the center of the screen, which I think is screen size.center. So what we can do is if we do it in two separate steps, because you might not want to scroll one, so I'll just show it this way. So we'll just say gm.engine view. Oh, I can say plus equals, so pos.x minus gm.screen size dot center dot x. So I'm not going to move it up and down. Oh, is it not letting me do that? Right, hang on. It's because I've done it in a stupid way. Right, if I do this, pos.x minus equals, and I'll just subtract it there. And then just set it again, like I was doing before. Equals pos. And I'll do the y one, might as well. So y minus the y offset. I think it's minus, I can't, we'll find out in a minute. So I'm automatically scrolling now. I didn't put much features in there, so it's a bit manky. Right, I haven't put the keys for up and down, so it's not actually doing that. But it's automatically scrolling. The other thing it's doing is it won't scroll outside the viewport. So it's locking it. You can turn that off. So it's probably, in the view manager is probably the best place to be controlling that. So we can say gm dot. If anyone needs to do multiple viewports, you can do that. So you can draw everything at multiple offsets and things. So if you do like multiplayer or something. So we can actually say view dot clamp. So you say this forces it. So if we say clamp equals false, you'll see the difference. We will literally be in the center of the screen all the time. There's some writing in the center of the screen, right? So I stay in the center of the screen, but it's going beyond the view. And the tilemap just goes, oh god. That code's more complicated than you think to get the tilemap to do that. So you can, sometimes you might want to do that. If we're interacting with the walls, I'll stop this video here because that's like the first bit. But if we're interacting with the walls, it might not matter that we do that. And it might be that you've got some funny graphics or something that you want on the outside of the map anyway. And then the wall's actually restricting what you do. Let me just put the, I haven't got escape set up. Let me put the player code in for up and down. So that's like an unintelligent camera. So the other thing you can do is you can say store the data for the player and try and move towards that position. So you can do like easing, and like a lot of games, most games do that. So let's just do the up and down, just make sure it works. So up is negative because 0 is at the top, and down is positive. You'll soon realise that when you go the opposite way. So just use the same delta value. I should have done a checkerboard or something. Oh, I've got the keys wrong. Oh no, I'll put the same key. Copy paste for you. What did I do? I've done something stupid there. They were both going up and down. Oh, they both say minus. Copy paste, copy paste. See, and the thing is, it didn't generate a syntax error, and then they become a nightmare to find. But if you're modularizing, then you need escape set up to quit. It's annoying. Right, so on the view manager, I'm going to turn that back to true, just to show you the effect. So if you've got it clamped, that means you can travel. So all these values, it can't offset it because it can't go any further over, so it just automatically clamps it. So it lets you run into the corners, which is actually quite a nice little free feature, isn't it? Mm. So the only other thing to get this like fully working and interacting with the tilemap is to, whenever you move left, so if we look at the player code, what I'm actually doing, I'm just saying, yeah, as long as the keys pressed, move. But what I actually need to do is to say, if the keys pressed, fine, but can I actually move left? So I need to ask the tilemap manager or that map. I need to say, right, okay, my game map. So I really need to do something like this. I'm not going to build this yet, but I'm just going to. So I need, what did I call my map? Game map. So I need to say the game map, and by getting each map to generate the player, it has a reference to that map. So if you make different maps, it's going to work the same. This doesn't exist. So we're saying, can I move to the next location? So I'm going to say, can I move? Oh, I'm doing right. So I'm going to say the world's longest method name. Move right possible. All right. So what I need to do is to either give me as a sprite. So I could say for this sprite, because I can interrogate the sprite and find out where its right hand side is. So I'm going to set that up. So generate map. So I'm not putting the code in here because it's map specific, and there might be something weird about tiles in the tile map, and the sprite shouldn't know anything about the different types of tiles unless it's having to interact. So I'm going to go to that, and that's where I'm going to return true or false. So if I say return false, that should automatically stop me moving right, because I haven't put any logic in there. So when I try and go right now, I am pressing right. That's me going right. You can't see the keyboard if I do that. And it's not moving. Yeah, so we just need to put the logic in for that, which I'll do in another video.